Bard on the Plains podcast with Mike McPeak. It's about stories, mine and yours.
I sit down with Tina Peterson to talk about her recent trip to Israel. Tina's husband Kevin is the pastor of the Assembly of God Church here in Clark. Her and I have worked together for the last 5 years when she started as executive secretary. She's one of those people who bring a positive energy to a room and improves the moods of the people around her. When I talked to her about the trip, I could almost feel the joy and peace that emanated from her. So please get comfortable and listen to Tina's spiritual journey.
My name is Tina Peterson, and I am the administrative assistant at the Clark School District, and I am also the elementary secretary. We have been in Clark just a little over 6 years. My husband pastors the Assemblies of God Church in town. His name is Kevin, and that's what brought us to the Clark community, really is Kevin coming to the church, and each community that we have pastored in, seems like we always get plugged into the school, and then that's a way for us getting involved into the community as well.
Well, and the reason why I wanted to talk to you is you just come back hours ago or 24 hours ago from Israel.
Yeah, a little over 24 hours.
And you asked to get your keys back from the school, so I just kind of struck a deal with you. If you wanted to talk a little bit about your trip to Israel, I'd let you have your keys back. Well, I'm not that mean, but it just seemed kind of good. And I thought, while it was still fresh in your mind, I just kind of wanted to talk to you about, first of all, why did you want to go over to Israel?
I think every Christian, faith believer has a desire to, deep down to go to Israel. And to be honest with you, it was something Kevin and I, it's like a dream. But we never really thought financially we would be able to ever accomplish that dream. But our South Dakota District of Assemblies of God, our superintendents, went over on a tour a couple years ago. And they were really touched and really learned a lot while they were over there. And he came back and really felt led to send two pastors, to send pastors from our district each year on the same tour. And I believe this is the second year that the South Dakota District has done this. And we went with another pastor, Tom and Christy Brantner, from Huron, South Dakota. They were another couple from South Dakota that went. There were 40 people total on our team that went, but we were the 4 from South Dakota. And the South Dakota District actually paid for Kevin's way, and then our superintendent came to our church and asked our church family, our church congregation, if they would be willing to help send me. And so really, our way was paid. Kevin's way was paid by the South Dakota District of Assemblies of God, and my way was paid by our church congregation.
Now, have you been out of the country before? Outside, say, Canada or something? Have you flown to, another country outside of the continent of the United States?
I haven't. I have never been overseas or out of the country, other than across the border in Canada or Mexico. Kevin went on a missions trip, I believe, in 1988, the year we graduated from high school. He went to Curacao. Went as a youth missions trip. But really, this was the longest, I think, both of us, because it was a 10-day tour that we were gone, and it was a life-changing experience.
What was your first impression when you got out of the airplane? Now, when you got out of the plane in Israel, what was your first impression? Being from the Midwest, you grew up in Minnesota, so it's not that different than South Dakota. What hit you, or the first things you thought when you stepped out and looked around and went?
Yeah, well, we flew into Tel Aviv, and I don't know, it was an oasis. There were palm trees. Being from small town South Dakota, you don't see a lot. City, it was all so surreal. We've known for the last year about this trip, and it just never felt like it was really going to happen. And then it happened, and you're just so in awe. Everything was, we soaked everything in the whole time we were there. But I mean, the landscape. We arrived and it was dark outside, but the next morning, I think our first night was in Beersheba, and that is in the desert part of Israel, and so it was pretty barren, but beautiful, It's just the palm trees, and they're date palm trees.
How did the people strike you when you started to meet the Israeli people?
Very friendly. Israel's main industry is tourism, and they cater to the tourists. That's their main source of income. And so, they are very, very friendly, very used to tourists being around. That was obvious because it was business as usual. They didn't stand and point at us white Americans. It was. They carried on like it was every day, and obviously they were used to people there snapping pictures at them and everything, but
now, since you were on a mission or traveling for the church, basically, you took in holy sites. Which ones did you see? I know you put them on Facebook, but I can't remember which ones.
There was a lot, and mind is on overload right now as well. Some that really stand out is we spent a few days at the Sea of Galilee, and we just, toured a lot of sites around the Sea of Galilee. We saw different tells where they were excavating, the cities and just the different city gates and the walls and the stones that we saw. We spent days in Jerusalem as well. We had a nighttime boat ride from Tiberias back to En-Gev.
Would that have been the trip when Jesus walked on the water?
Well, that was, the Lake of Galilee is what we crossed,
okay.
Yes. And it was evening then. It was dark, so really we didn't see a whole lot. It was interesting to just hear the waves crash against the boat. And it was raining a couple days, and so it actually did. The wind picked up, and it sprinkled a little bit while we were out there. And the crew that ran the boat's name was Faith. They were a Christian crew, and halfway through, one of the couples from our tour actually renewed their wedding vows on the boat, and the last half of the boat ride to En-Gev, we sang worship songs, and it was beautiful. It was a very anointed, very touching, emotional time to be on the Lake of Galilee and be singing worship songs.
Now, did you go to the Garden of Gethsemane?
Yeah, we ended actually the Via della Rosa. We walked that route and saw, the Garden of Gethsemane, and every place, every holy place, they always build a church on top, and so every, even Jesus' tomb, the birthplace, there was always a church there, that you walked through to see the site. And, you go to national parks, Masada was amazing. That was, I'm going to get all the facts wrong but it was King Herod.
Well, we're not...
overlooking the Dead Sea. It was beautiful.
No, I know one of the pictures you posted, and I can't remember where it was, one of the gates, I believe, where, Jesus actually had walked. Where was that?
That was the Temple Mount, walking into the gate of the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. That was the one place that our tour guide said, 100% sure fact, that Jesus walked through the temple gate. We know that for sure. And the stone walkway was originally, it was original stone still. And so we had a picture, of me and Kevin kneeling, touching the stone, that Jesus walked on. That was one thing that he could say 100% sure that Jesus walked through there.
Now, because I know we're getting reports now about, there's always been conflicts in Israel, but there's, reports now about fights going on. Were you there when that started, or? We
were there. We never once saw or heard anything. We always felt safe. Regardless, we were always away from television, during the day. Our day started, we'd get up by 6 o'clock and be on the bus between 7:30 and 8, and we wouldn't get back in the evening till around 7 o'clock at night, so we were gone all day, and our tour guides, didn't announce to us every time something was going on, but I know there have been some tour groups that haven't been able to go into Bethlehem because we have to cross through Palestinian territory to get, that's where Bethlehem is, but there was never a site that we could not go to because of unsettlement, and we always felt safe, never saw or heard anything, and it seemed like things followed us. We were all along the Golan Heights. We were like 3 miles from the Gaza. We were in Tel Aviv. Our flight was leaving at 1 o'clock in the morning, and apparently the sirens were going off, for Tel Aviv all night that night. But flight was never canceled. Nothing changed on the way back. Never felt unsafe.
Now, I guess, the big question is, being a Christian and a minister's wife, what did it mean to you to go over to the birthplace of Christianity?
It was amazing. It's hard to put it into words, and that's one thing our tour guide had told us, is what we experienced over there. It is going to be hard to put into words, but to be able to look over a hillside and see Capernaum, Chorazin, the path through the hills that Jesus took to Jerusalem, to see all these places that are within walking distance, it just seems to bring your Bible to life. You would, even being on the Mount of Beatitudes, beautiful, and you just, to have the view that Jesus saw, to look over the valleys, to look over the Jordan River, to walk along the shore of the sea or Lake of Galilee, just knowing that he had been there, or that we're seeing the same thing that he saw. It's hard to put into words what it meant. It was beautiful, really.
And I'm sure you'd go back in a second if you had the opportunity, or
if I could, yeah. It was, and our tour guide, our Mark Turnage was our American tour guide. We went with the tour group, Center for Holy Land Studies, and that's based out of the Assemblies of God in Springfield, Missouri. He was our American tour guide, and Elan was our Israeli tour guide. And they were a great team. The history and the culture, Elan added so much, and Mark being schooled and attending Hebrew University, just the knowledge that came from both of these men was amazing. You've been taught in Sunday school or that Jesus was a carpenter, and carpenter to us in America is woodworking, but in the culture in Jesus' time, it's masonry. Jesus was not born in a barn. He was born in a cave, and it was stone. It was not made of wood. And their houses, the basement level of the house was the barn. The livestock and the kitchen, the cooking area, took place in the basement, which was made of stone. The family lived upstairs. So, there's just culture translations that didn't take place when they translated the Bible. There's just different cultures and things that kind of messed up our whole nativity scene, but it was interesting. It really was, to see the culture and hear the culture, and it's like, yeah, it makes so much sense. There you go to Jerusalem, you go to Bethlehem, you go to Nazareth, you don't see wood, you see stone, everything.
Well, it's a desert. I don't think they had a lot of trees to choose
Well,
from.
actually, Jerusalem was very green.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know they always talk about the cedars of Sinai in the Bible, but when you see pictures, there's like a lot of rocks.
Yeah, it was all. Everything was stone.
What did you think of like the food over there?
Oh,
Give a
that's
Midwestern
always
taste.
been good discussion. I love vegetables.
Yeah.
They had vegetables every meal. Breakfast, salads for breakfast. You know, a whole salad bar for breakfast, lunch, and supper. And lamb was a big meat. I mean, they had beef, they had chicken. Shawarma, I don't know, we had falafel and shawarma. It was kind of like shawarma's kind of like a gyro. It's in a pita pocket, and you get meat in there with a lot of vegetables. But vegetables are really big. They marinate them. You know, a lot of tomatoes, a lot of olives.
Okay. Yeah, olives. Right.
Pita bread was wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, Midwestern with Midwestern taste, we eat a lot of beef and we eat a lot of. Now, did they have seafood over there, or?
You know, there's fish every meal. You had fish for breakfast, fish for lunch, some type of fish. And I'm not a big fish fan, so I didn't try the fish. I stayed safe with chicken. There was one meal at one of the hotels where Kevin loves meat, of course, and he'll try any meat. And I was always nervous about getting lamb, because I know I don't like lamb. I've had it and I don't like it, and I was nervous that something up there, because they didn't label anything. It was kind of like surprise meat. And Kevin and the other pastor that we were with was just raving about this meat, and it was sliced like roast beef, you know, in a gravy like roast beef. And I took a little bite of Kevin's, and I was like, nope, not doing it. And anyway, long story short, we finally asked the waitress that came and cleared our table what it was, and she told us in Hebrew, and we didn't understand. And Kevin's like, I don't understand. And then she stuck out her tongue and pointed to it. And so it was tongue that they were eating, and actually the skin was still on it. They were a little puzzled by the blisters, which we found out were taste buds. They did not skin it. But they enjoyed it, but it wasn't something I was going to try.
No.
I mean, I had a little bite, and that little teeny bite was enough. And
Mom would do tongue. She'd do a lot of those things, and she could chase me around the house with that stuff and couldn't get me to eat it.
no, Kevin and Tom liked it, but not something I was willing to eat.
Well, do you have any final thoughts you just kind of want to round this out with? Or?
You know, it was a trip of a lifetime. You know, God opened eyes. Israel definitely left its stamp on my heart. We met Jews, saw the Western Wall, beautiful. Gave me a whole new perspective of my Bible and the meaning of living out my faith. It's changed me forever, really. And still processing everything we've learned and all the places and the sites that we saw. And looking over our pictures, we took about probably 1,700 between Kevin and I. And we got a lot to go through, but we saw a lot in those 10 days that we were there. And if anybody ever is given the opportunity or can take the opportunity to go, I would go. And Israel is safe. It is. It was very safe when we were there.
Okay. Well, I thank you for doing this. I'll let you get some sleep. Maybe your body clock will reset here eventually.
I'm hoping it will.
But I just hope everybody finds this as interesting as what you did. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's the end of November, and we're officially into the holiday season. We're being bombarded with all kinds of advertisements to buy the people we love stuff. I don't think it's the stuff we all need so much as it is the love. We're coming off another election cycle with all sorts of stories and innuendos being bandied about concerning groups and individuals. There are all kinds of things being said, and not all of it very good. There is more fighting in the Middle East and other parts of the world. God commanded us to love one another. He didn't say we had to agree, just that we had to learn to love and respect each other. For the sake of our communities, our country, and the world, we should quit shouting and listen to the other person. Then maybe we'll be able to do the loving thing instead of the right thing.
If you have a story you'd like to tell, contact Mike on Twitter at BardOnThePlains or by email at bardontheplains@gmail.com. For more information about the stories in this podcast, visit bardontheplains.com.